Hello and welcome everybody to a very special edition of the Buy Round.
With James Graham
And
Charlie White.
that's right, Charlie.
It's great to see you, Jimmy. You sound a bit nasally, mate. What's that all about?
I'm a bit under the weather, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, luckily this is a big studio and we've got a nice bit
Yeah,
of distance
keep-
between us.
Distance. I reckon I've had something for about 2 months. Can't quite shake
Can't
it
quite
off.
shake it.
No.
Maybe you need to try living a healthier lifestyle, perhaps. Slow things down from time to time.
Well, I do live a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. From Monday to Thursday.
I ran 8 1Ks on Friday and 10K on Saturday.
Do you want to tell the audience about your 8-1Ks? You were very proud about it. You were sort of telling it. We were at the football yesterday.
Yeah, I was pretty chuffed with
And
it,
you were
actually.
showing everyone your times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What was it?
Yes,
4?
I hate the fact I've become a data whore.
Yeah.
So, I used to just go for a run and I didn't even know how far I went. I just ran because I did it.
Yeah.
Now it's all about the watch and all the data, as you Aussies call it.
Well, I heard
It was
that-
pretty fucking good, though, to be fair.
Yeah,
I don't
to be
normally
fair.
I don't normally swear on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm trying to curb that back.
Yeah.
But it was pretty fucking fast.
By the looks of the times, it was pretty quick. You were doing sub 4-minute kilometers over 8Ks.
And jogging in between.
Yeah, like
8Ks
that's
as well.
impressive. Bravo. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well,
Thank
mate, you
you. Thank
deserve
you.
a pat the back
Yeah,
for that.
I've got High Rocks on the 4th of July.
Yeah. Are you still looking at maybe, I know you called me last week actually about a buy-round run club. Is that something that does interest you?
It does actually. It'd be great to hear our listeners' appetite for a potential run club and what the geographical location of that run club would be, because our listeners, our fans, obviously predominantly New South Wales based, but New South Wales is a big state. So
it is. Do you want to do it in the Shire? Do you want to do it in the Western
preferentially,
Sydney?
yes, it would be the Shire, because then I don't have to drive as far to kick off the said run club.
Maybe you have to just rotate it around Sydney, different suburb.
Well, you'd probably need a few touch points, wouldn't you? And
Yeah.
you'd have to do a weekly event. So you'd
Yeah.
go Shire one day, Centennial Park. I mean,
Yeah, it's a good running track, Centennial.
it is a good running track, but I get the feeling our listeners don't live near there.
Yeah, they might not. We'd have to do. Maybe we should do some surveys on our listeners, find out where they live.
Yeah.
and get them.
I don't
running
reckon
around.
there's many Easties.
Well, I mean, I live in the east.
Yeah, I know. And
Yeah.
you didn't need to tell our listeners that for them to know that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
There's a
does.
huge correlation between people that live in the East and you.
Yeah.
And you fit into that category perfectly.
And why do I fit into that category, James? in your eyes?
Because dress, level of self-importance, yeah.
Yeah,
All of those things that you associate with the eastern suburbs.
I can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I take that as a great offense. I've lived all over Sydney. I've lived in the northern beaches. I've lived in the I've lived in the inner west.
Oh yeah, all
Let me
those.
finish. I've lived in the inner west. I've lived in the inner city. I've lived in Redfern, and I currently reside in the eastern suburbs. But I've tried it all. I've tried it all,
Yeah,
except the
not-
Shire
not
and the
really.
west.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, Shire, the
Yeah.
west, North Shore. Never lived there.
The Shire gets a bit of a Some people you say, "Oh, I live in the Shire," and people look at you. I'm like, it's
Nah, Shire's gorgeous.
no, but so, there is a reputation
there
there
is.
that it's kind of like, oh, they look down your nose. People like you would look down your nose
I don't look down at anyone.
at people that live in the Shire.
I don't. I'm humble. I went to TAFE for year 11 and 12, so I'm
Did
quite
you?
humble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of me,
Says that, yeah. Oh, yeah. Speaking of me, yeah, go on.
speaking of me, the comments from last week's episode, it's given me a bit of a complex because I didn't realize I said almond wrong. So I've been saying almond milk, but it's actually almond.
Almond. yeah.
Almond. So I think it's an English thing from when I was born in England, because I've lived there as well, everyone. And I think that's where you get it
Almond.
from.
No.
So it's-
Well, I'm English, and I say almond, as in
Almond.
the nut.
Almond milk. So I've been saying almond,
Almond, yeah, almond.
but it's almond. So I apologize. I've learned something new. I do say some words strange, and I'm going to try and work on that.
Yeah, well done. Almond.
Now, enough of that riveting conversation, which I'm sure you all love. Because importantly, Jimmy, we have this new segment called Message of the Week where...
Message of the Week, yes.
Anyone can message us across all our different platforms. The email is thebuyround@gmail.com if you do want to get involved there. But this one, this week, I love this idea, by the way. I'm going to preface that before starting. But it's from Glenn Hicks, and he emailed us in. And he said, boys, I'm so sick of the buys interfering with the actual positions on the ladder. It's almost pointless even having a ladder or looking at the ladder during the season, which I really like to do. I agree with him wholeheartedly on that.
He likes to look at the ladder.
Yeah, I love looking at the ladder as well, but you can't get a read of it.
I look at it and
go, I love looking at the ladder.
Love it. Okay.
I love it, mate. You look at the mathematical equations, how far out's this team, who's fair, who's where. But he said, I do understand the argument for not giving them 0 points for a bye because it's a bit unfair to that team, especially early in the season. So here's my idea. Since the NRL is so hell-bent on giving 2 points for a bye, why not start every team on 6 points before the season starts? Job done. Then everyone has those points in the bank, fair and square, and we can actually see the proper position a team is in.
It's basically a long-winded way of just giving no points for the bye, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, when I look at the ladder, I just look at the win-loss ratio.
Sorry, there's a train coming past our studio, if you can hear that.
I don't look at the ladder, the points. I just look at the win-loss ratio because I think that's the best way to look at it. But with that listener's comment, 6 points for the bye.
Glenn Hicks.
I mean, it's the same as giving no points for the bye.
Yeah.
I really don't like it how a team can literally, and I've seen it where the live ladder comes through. And like, I think, for example, there was a team on 8 wins was above a team on 10 wins.
Is it the same as not giving points though? Because like, even if you haven't had all your buys, it's like, you know how it's, if they don't give points, it's going to be uneven for the teams that have had their buys but not being given points for it. Whereas if you get points for it, it kind of is irrelevant who's had the buys because you've all got your points there.
It is a bit of a mess. I really don't like it how, I think the Cowboys were in the 8 with 5 wins, and there was a couple of teams with 6 wins that weren't in the 8. It's just,
I'm for the belief.
Well, you know what it leads into as well is like, this team's in the 8. It's like, well, you're not really in the 8.
No,
this team's outside. Like, and it leads into like a media narrative at times. This team's not in the 8 at the moment. It's like, well, they're not, but they should be.
Mate, to be fair, the Titans are like a win outside the 8 almost. Like the way it is going, that bottom half of the ladder is so tight this year.
It is. And like, do you know what? Usually you have to have an even record. Yeah. In terms of, so it's 12 wins, 12 losses will get you in the 8. There's 3 teams on negative records that are currently, is it 3 or 2?
It might be 2. It might be 2, I think.
Because the Dolphins won.
Yeah. Dolphins are 7 wins, 7 losses. Broncos are 6 and 7. Roosters are 6 and 7, both all in the top 8.
So there's 2 teams with negative records in the 8, which is probably a reason why the Panthers aren't as impacted as maybe they perhaps should be. So, like when Manly have lost a couple in recent weeks, and you go, that helps the Panthers. And look, like, this isn't anything against the Panthers, but like really they should be nowhere. When you consider their start to the season, and we talked about them needing X amount of wins, well, within 3 weeks they're back right in the mix. So they'll probably lose this week.
Yep.
Against the Warriors. Well, then I think it's the Dogs after that, but it's not been as impactful as maybe it would have been in yesteryear.
Yeah, and the thing that I think, I personally think it's time to make the buys 0 points.
Yep.
And I think that's the best solution. However, looking at the ladder as well, though, the Tigers are only 1 win off bottom.
Well, there's a lot of teams that are in that. And so the Titans are the only team with 4.
Titans and Eels, 4 wins, 9 losses.
Yeah, they both have 4 wins,
And then you got Knights, 5 wins, 9 losses. Then you got the Bunnies, 6 wins, 8 losses. And the Dragons and the Tigers, 5 wins, 8 losses.
Well, I think there's genuinely a few of those teams that their most loyal supporters and their coaches and their players would be going, we can make the 8. I reckon there's a few that the reality of it is they're looking beneath them, and below them, and going, "Oh, shit."
Yeah.
And Parramatta, I think, do they play the Titans?
They do, yeah.
The Dragons, the next couple, without Mitch Moses.
It's a shame.
And they played so well in the last 2 weeks. They seem to have got their act together. Riles, his coaching strategy, his tactics and game plan are bearing fruits. They're performing really well, but they're just not getting the victories. They've obviously a lot of areas to fix up, but they could be in if without Moses, the next 2 weeks are massive for them.
6 weeks he's out for.
If they're looking to avoid the spoon.
Yeah,
those two games are huge.
Well, he's out for 6 weeks as well, so it's long term. Mate, I'll do one more because there was actually another really good email from Ian Perkins, and the subject for the email is British state of origin.
Okay.
So it's a long email, so I might just try and summarise it a bit. But he's like, I'm writing to ask, as a loyal British fan of the show, your opinion of an idea he's had for many years of origin in England. He believes Britain could benefit greatly from having a similar competition but out of season to support all the home nations' preparation for future internationals. This is his pitch. The original 4 counties to break away from rugby league were Yorkshire, Lancashire, Cheshire, and Cumbria. I propose that a weekend knockout competition between these teams would hugely benefit players potentially playing for their countries and showing selection commitment. Basically, he wants a 4-way state of origin in England.
It's been tried before and it didn't work. So they've had, and we used to play it as kids, Yorkshire v Lancashire. And it was always, but unfortunately, St Helens is in Merseyside, Wigan is in Greater Manchester, Warrington's Cheshire. Like, Yorkshire could exist, but really none of the other counties could, and there's not that same level as Queensland, New South Wales. Like, it's just like I would never say I'm from Merseyside. Some people from Yorkshire would go, I'm proud for being from Yorkshire, but other than that, like, I don't think there's a county in England that people are like, oh, I'm from this area.
Yeah.
Like for me to play for Lancashire, I don't give a shit about Lancashire.
Yeah, true.
Like I'd play for Liverpool. But like for Merseyside, so means
who gives
nothing.
a toss? Yeah.
And also, like, there's already fixture congestion in England. Great, and they've tried it before with Yorkshire v Lancashire, but it wore the roses, but it didn't really take off.
Do you reckon they could be like a mid-season tournament? Like, they've got the Challenge Cup. I was watching the scenes of the Challenge Cup, 60,000 at Wembley, then like this huge parade back in Hull KR. It's like a genuine second tournament that England gets. Yeah. I reckon the NRL could do something similar. Definitely. And it's time for them to look at that. The NBA started doing it in the last couple of years with the NBA in-season tournament. I think it would work really well over here.
It is a legit way to... And maybe it would be on the radar of the NRL when they get to 20 teams. And if they all play each other once...
19-round comp?
Yeah, with a cup competition in between.
Yeah. Origin mixed in they could simplify the draw a lot better.
Yeah. But obviously, things like the Challenge Cup, it means so much to the clubs, the players, the fans because of history. Like, if that was just invented now, it probably wouldn't have the same pull.
But you got to start at some point, don't you?
You do.
In 100 years' time, it could be
exactly
right up there with winning an NRL competition. Who knows? Anyway, let's talk Origin, Jimmy.
Let's get into it.
Kicks off, obviously, tomorrow night in Perth. I'm going to be going to Perth today. Looking forward to it. But it's heated up, actually, the beef a little bit. You were on Triple M on Sunday, and obviously Woodsy at Triple M the week before earlier had a big crack at Billy Slater, and Gordon Tallis returns to serve. But it's great to have that heat firing up again.
Well, it's media personalities, former players with it, but like, honestly, with Woodsy's take, I really don't understand what his point is.
I think he's sparking.
Yeah, he's trying to spark.
And what he said about Billy Slater isn't incorrect, though. Like, Billy Slater did get suspended a lot.
Yeah, but like, it's like, it was years ago.
It was years ago, of course, but it's something. It's something to spark Queensland.
Again, I really don't understand what his point is. Like, it's like, oh, okay. And because of the lackluster build-up, that's maybe a bit harsh, but...
Well, it is a bit like...
Because of the vanilla build-up.
Yeah.
It's like, Woodsy said this, whoa.
Yeah.
He's called him a grub, whoa. Like...
Well, players are too media trained these days to say anything, and they're so scared.
Does Billy Slater care from what he did?
I reckon he might care, Billy Slater.
I don't think he'd give a toss.
You don't reckon he cared? I think he seems more aware of media. I think it seems to affect. I know he had a crack at Brent Reed a couple of years ago when Brent Reed wrote the Selwyn Droppo article. I know that offended Billy.
Yeah, but
I think Billy might be.
That's a recent that particular article was a current event on his current situation and his current actions, not things that happened.
But it's all pressure, Jimmy.
I don't think Billy Slater would have moved anything on the pressure gauge whatsoever.
I think he would be aware of what's been said, and I think it would.
Oh, he'd be aware of it, but he'd just go.
Maybe he's lent into it though, but internally, maybe they're all out to get us. The Dean Ritchie article was harsh as well, but anyway, forget about all that sort of stuff. Queensland, how can they possibly win game 2?
Well, fundamentally, Charlie, they have to win the collision. They have to win the ruck. They have to win the contact. The dual contact, from the get-go, they lost. I think Wade Graham came on and he was talking about the Mitch Barnett drew the first run, which you shouldn't have as an attacker in Origin, and then Lomax won the second ruck. Like, there you go. Like, the first set, they should be getting pelted. Like, I know they're good, strong carriers of football, but you've got to win those collisions. Have to. Like, it's fundamental. That's where they were lacking. And then maybe there was a misunderstanding on the rules of engagement in terms of what was going to be allowed. Like, Chino for Suamala-Awe's penalty in any other state of origin from years ago is just play on.
Yeah, it was ref terribly that game. It was the refereeing was atrocious.
You could make that point, and I think it's got weight. But if that's what they're doing now, if that's the current state of the game, then Queensland probably have to pull back.
They surely can't be refereed like that away again. That's just, mate. The penalty count was insane for a state of origin game. Like, you can't referee it like that. Because it felt like it did feel like a club game 1. And I think that both teams will be aware of that as well. And they'll probably bend the rules a little bit to start off with. I just can't wait for that first carry of whoever takes it.
Yeah.
And to see if that intensity's been raised, to see if the players have listened to all that noise.
The intensity definitely needs to be raised. But it'll be interesting that whether, with how the game is going to be reffed, I'd like for the players to know, so they're not shocked. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
If the players know what's going to be a penalty or not, and the referee sticks to it, then fair enough.
Do you reckon they're going to...
But fundamentally, like Queensland, like, I know they've moved DCE on, a couple of subtle changes in the back line, both them are out, but they have to go. It's an attitude. Like, they didn't bring a strong enough attitude to win the collision, and they kicked away. When we looked at the Spencer Leniu thing, it's not that they didn't kick off to him; they deliberately kicked away from him, and I think that at that level, it sends a message. Like, the week before, Spencer Leniu was playing for the Sydney Roosters. Bulldogs were kicking to the right. He's starting the game. He stood there. The Bulldogs didn't change. And he ran over Max King.
Yeah.
But, like, if the Bulldogs are going to kick to him and other club sides kick to him, if you're Queensland, like, you're going to kick away from him?
Showed a little bit of fear almost.
Yeah, you could say that it was a deliberate tactic to avoid his best run, which I know, like, so if you're playing against, say if you're playing against Latrell Mitchell, you'll look to put South or New South Wales in positions that Latrell can't be at his best. But it's different when it's a kick-off carry. Like, I understand the logic, but it's an emotional game. And the deliberate tactic to kick away from him as opposed to not to him, I think it was telling. I think we'll see a different approach this time around.
One thing I think is interesting is the hammer moving to the wing.
Yeah.
And it's expected, now this hasn't been confirmed, but it's expected that the hammer's actually going to switch sides. I wonder if they're trying to get the hammer away from Stephen Crichton and how good Stephen Crichton is defensively and how he was moving, almost shutting down sort of everything. I think there was one moment in the game, in game one, where Hammer looked to get around him and he did, but then it was quickly closed down. Putting Hammer on the other side, is Lomax and Latrell, are they more vulnerable defensively?
Yes, they probably are.
Not Lomax, sorry. To'o and Latrell.
Yeah, they probably are. And that's the side. So Queensland shifted to their right-hand side, especially out of yardage, and it got a little bit of joy. So don't be surprised to see them just try and go back to that strategy of yardage shifts to their right. But again, like whatever game plan you do, you've got to win the collision. Like that's it. In fact, I think that's all Slater has to say. Like I think back to some of the instructions from coaches and these big game plans. Sometimes all you need is one instruction: win the collision. That's it.
Do you reckon?
Like Christian Wolf in our grand final in 2020 showed us one video clip. One piece of video.
Which was?
Wigan getting over the top of us and like picking on someone and then carrying on. That's all he showed. That was
the game plan.
He just said, "Watch this, lads."
Right. Wow.
And didn't, obviously the spine would have had a plan, but that was it. That's all he showed us. He said, "That's all you need to see."
And did he say anything along? Did he say it, or is he like, "Watch this"?
Not really.
Yeah.
No.
Wow. Yeah.
That's all it took for a grand final. One clip.
Yeah, it's amazing how good the Dolphins are going this year. And we're going to talk about them later.
But you know what? Slater might just show Zach Lomax's first carry, the second carry of the game, and it can be as simple as that. Like in the team room, which will be happening today, or tomorrow in the hotel in Perth, just before you get on the bus. Just show them that.
They could even show Spencer carrying on the sideline, revving up the Queensland crowd. Jerome Luai a couple of years ago, was it Kafusi he stood over? I can't remember if it was Kafusi or not off the top of my head, but shots like that.
Yeah. No,
there's almost lean into that New South Wales arrogance a bit, which is coming through in
just
the fact
one clip.
Yeah.
And just go, is that what you're going to accept?
Yeah. I know that he's not just showing them one clip, though, because he's got them apparently doing long-ass days. Like, there's talk of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. days, which in Origin seems insane.
Yeah, I don't know where this report's come from, but...
It's just little whispers doing the round.
Yeah. I mean, a 7 a.m. start when you're in camp, what, for breakfast?
Yeah. Yeah, what's that being determined as? Yeah.
You can't train from 7 to 7.
No. But doing things like breath work and yoga and, stretching all together, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It would be a long day, but I reckon I'd be beyond surprised if it was true.
Just quickly on Billy before we focus on New South Wales, do you reckon there's any chance if they lose this series, if they get swept in this series, he walks away from Queensland?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, potentially. Like, obviously it'd be a second series loss, but it's not like there's a glaring candidate to take over.
No. And he's probably thinking, I mean, all the thoughts are that Billy's going to get Craig Bellamy's job when Craig Bellamy decides to give it away, but Frank Panisi said over the weekend that he doesn't think Craig's going anywhere anytime soon. Yeah,
it'd be a tough one for Coach Bellamy to walk away from. But yeah, I just can't see Slater giving up. And like he's just got a new captain in Munster. He'd want to see that through. Like, and I can't see QRL moving him on.
Yeah.
So.
Geez, I can't wait to see how Munster goes as captain.
Yeah.
I thought he tried the hardest out of everyone. Nano was probably their best player in game.
He always tries hard.
On,
yeah.
He tried so hard. I just hope it clicks for them.
Yes.
I really do. Because I am a New South Wales fan, and this is probably blasphemous to say, but I want Queensland to win game 2 so we get to decide for game 3.
Yes, I know that feeling, Charlie.
James Graham doesn't believe in dead rubbers as well, everybody. He wants game 3 to not happen if New South Wales win game 2.
No. It's just an interesting look on sporting culture, Charlie. And obviously, there's a lot of people that are critical about the impact of Origin. It should be standalone. But you have this game that wouldn't go ahead in a lot of other countries.
But there's no such thing as a dead rubber, Jimmy.
Well, there's a thing called motivation. And it's been proven scientifically to be a huge factor. So you can't tell me if one team has 2 wins and you're playing 3 games, it's the same, because it's actually factually incorrect.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the same, though, to be an incredible game, to be an important game as well. New South Wales haven't had a sweep in 25 years? 25 years waiting for a sweep.
All right, it's, you know what? Put the 34 best players out there again.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a game that means nothing.
Yeah,
right,
but how good? You just said it there. How good to watch the 34 best players playing a game?
But you know what it comes down to?
Yeah, what?
Broadcasters.
Yeah.
Money. That's what it is.
Of course.
So that's what. So it's not about the meaning or the passion or the feeling. It's not about that.
That's
it's
nonsense.
about broadcasting money.
Nah, it's about money and it's about the feeling, mate. What about the Ashes? You play 5 tests in England. Like you play England, Australia, play the Ashes here over the summer. If Australia win the first 3 tests, they're going to play the 4th and 5th.
That doesn't mean that it should happen.
No, but it does. It matters though. Having a sweep is important.
Oh, well, again, it's.
And also,
you know, all sports are made up with made up rules. People talk about DNA.
Yeah.
And sport does so much, and I love sport. It changed my life. It made me as a person, but it's made up.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Ashes goes for 5 games is probably a geographical significance, that they go to different cities and they all get that touch point. But go over to America. You love your American sports, Charlie.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the NBA or the Major League Baseball, and they've won the World Series after they've won 4-1.
Playing games,
and then
6 and 7.
someone goes, "Oh, we're just going to go 6 and 7." Oh, because you're 4-0. Oh, but what about if we get a sweep? They just go, "Are you crazy?" Ask an American sports fan. They would find it insane that you would play a game once the series has been decided. They cannot fathom it.
Yeah, they can't fathom it.
And that's their sporting culture, and that's made up. And people go, "Oh, you just don't get Origin." It's like, it's made up. It's invented.
But James, just because it's popular in America, and America's in a very different.
Right, but fundamentally, I am, and even with England playing Australia in the 3-game series, at the end of the season, I don't know. It should be
2 and done.
To be confirmed.
No, see, that's stupid. Mate, the reason American sports can do it is the amount of money that's in these competitions.
So what? It's just about
But mate,
money
by
then?
your logic then, in all honesty, by your logic, all right, well, when in the English Premier League, when Man City silver title with 4 games to go, let's just stop playing. If relegation's sealed, if the top 4's sealed, let's just stop playing.
Yeah, you make a good point there.
You know, like you've just got to keep playing. And Australia, we're not America. We haven't got the money to behave like America.
You watered down Americans.
You live here. You are an Aussie. You're basically an Australian. You can go back to England at any time if you want. But it just, mate, in all honesty, it does mean a lot. There's no such thing as a dead rubber in Origin.
Okay.
And it will be great to see.
Let's hope it doesn't get to that
I
stage.
hope it's not a dead rubber. New South Wales, though, Jimmy, they're just going to go through the middle again.
They will do, Charlie.
Does Luai change anything for New South Wales?
No. I think probably they lose that long kicking game, but it wasn't needed as much from Moses. in game one. They might need it a bit more in game two, but I think Cleary just takes over that role. Yeah. So I think Luai just slots in.
Does Luai coming in improve New South Wales?
Yeah, in terms of like that run threat.
Yeah.
Where coming back off his left foot, absolutely it does.
And also, mate, it did seem like Moses wasn't himself in that first game. Like, it didn't seem like he had that swagger that he normally has when he's got the 7 on his back where he's controlling the team. I think him playing alongside Cleary maybe impacted him psychologically a little bit. And whereas Luai comes in, you got that combination there, that old Penrith combination there, and also the joy that they'll have in playing with each other again.
Well, especially for Jerome.
Yeah.
Let's go, how good is it to be back with Isaiah and Nathan, Dylan.
Yeah.
Like, he'd be loving it. And he just needs to do what he's done for 4 of the last 4.5 years.
Do you think they win comfortably New South Wales?
On paper, yes. But it's not one on paper.
It's one on grass.
I've still got to figure it out. I'm not quite sure.
I think that New South Wales either win by like 30 or Queensland win.
Queensland only win in a tight one. The recency bias is massively in favour of New South Wales. Like as an observer and an unemotional fan of Origin, what it's taught me is that you write off Queensland at your peril.
Yeah.
And I have no emotional attachment to it.
Yeah. It is. I like the amount of times I've been burnt during my lifetime thinking New South Wales were in a great position and they somehow stuff it up. But is this Queensland team that they've got the same as those Queensland teams of previous years?
Mate, you've still got some of the game's best.
Yeah.
Munster as captain.
Yeah.
Like Harry Grant. For me, they're two of the competition's best.
Ponga, when he's on, is arguably the second best player in the game.
Ponga hasn't been on for a long time, though.
Yeah.
Like a while. But I think we spoke with Cam Munster on Sunday on Triple M, and Gordon Tallis asked him about if Queensland win, what's the story? The spine played well. That's what. Forwards win the collision, and I think that says to me that Munster's up for a big game.
Yeah. Okay. So before we go to Clubland, then you just sat on the fence like expertly. That was expert fence sitting.
It was.
So
New South Wales.
Give me a tip. New South Wales by how many?
10.
10 points. All right. Man of the match?
Payne Haas.
Payne Haas dominates. All right. Clubland, Jimmy. Instant classic time. Huge thank you to Classic Sportswear for this segment, which is just incredible to be partnered up with Classic. And I got to tell you guys something. We've got some very, very special things coming with Classic. However, you can jump on in the link in our show notes now to become a VIP Classic member.
Yes,
so many deals in that. Classic make the best jersey. So if you're a club, looking to get some jerseys sort of for your local club, if they need an update, go to Classic. They do the Bunnies, Jimmy, who Brandon Smith now is wearing the Classic gear, looks fantastic. But we've got something coming soon with the buy round. So make sure you are signed up in that VIP Classic.
Well, also, Charlie, they do a great range of community club gear.
Absolutely.
As well. So
absolutely.
that is something you should not pass by.
No, so if you're a listener who is in the market for buying stuff like that, make sure you say the buy round sent you and jump on that link, join the buy round VIP group. But importantly, Jimmy, the Instant Classic, we're going to have to do the Dogs-Rabbitohs game. I'll be honest, not many of the games were that great over the weekend in terms of classic. There were fun games to watch, but there wasn't tight contest. But this was an Instant Classic because of a 30-minute thunderstorm delay.
Bizarre scenes. I think it's only, from my memory, it's only happened once with that Anzac Day game 2015.
2015 was that, yeah.
Can I be honest? I thought it was an overreaction.
Did you?
We saw the black cloud come in.
Yeah.
And there was a few lightning strikes. But then, to get the players to leave, the conditions weren't that bad. No. I know there's a potential for danger, but there's still security guards on the field. There was someone from the NRL and he was stood out there with an umbrella, which talk about stupid things to do.
Is that a no-no in a thunderstorm?
An umbrella with the thing pointing up at the top.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah, makes sense.
Safest place to be in a thunderstorm? Car.
I would have thought you're home.
Rubber. Connected.
So if it hits your car, it bounces off.
It's to do with... Yeah, so the umbrella, it's like it's pointed up.
You know, I nearly died from a lightning strike once.
Did
It
you?
literally missed me by like this much. I was standing like, here we are now. It hits the ground right there, like millimeters from hitting me. I was actually
Really?
working at Triple M, going down doing the food order, grabbing some coffees, and I'm standing there and it hit and it like millimeters from me. Great reaction, Jimmy. Great story. Great. Thank you for that, mate.
I'm glad you survived, Charlie.
Yeah. Thanks, mate.
like, sorry, maybe not an overreaction. I don't know. Was it did it seem that bad?
Yeah, I mean, there was thunder and lightning around. It wasn't crazy, but I think you have to do it, man. I think it's just stock standard. Like, I don't think that is the...
But there's been thunder and lightning at games before.
Yeah, not really. Not like that close to the stadium. It was like right around it. Remember there was lightning strikes. I think one hit the stadium at some point.
All right. Well, if that happened, fair enough.
So-
but you know what was funny? Like, they said to the fans in the lower bowl, just like go up underneath the roof. I'm like, what, you think lightning can't get them there?
Of course it can't if they're under the roof, you fucking doofus. If they're under the
an open
roof...
stadium.
No, but it's an open stadium, but it is sheltered up the top there. If you're in the sheltered area, you're not going to get hit. Do you not know how... That just goes to show you spend too much time sitting in corporate lush facilities at football stadiums. You need to get out there, sit in the stands, get amongst it.
You know what? If I'd have been a fan of that game, I'd have been running on the pitch just like those couple of kids did.
Yeah.
They had a great effort.
I love that. I think they shouldn't be punished as well. They did nothing wrong.
I hope that. Well, they did do something wrong.
No, they did nothing wrong
It's a funny
in my
one whether
eyes.
you should encourage it, but
You know what I want to see? I want to see a new rule in place for streaking. You get on the field, you get off the field, you're allowed. Like, if you can get on the field and get off without being touched by security, play on. Especially in a moment like that
you're
with a
going to
game.
encourage it. I think was it Dunedin in New Zealand? There was like I think it got out that there was no punishment for like pitch invasions and heaps of people.
Yeah, they did it. Yeah. There was like heaps in that one game. Yeah. Well, mate, apparently a lot of the time they don't actually fine you. So if you get done for if you get caught doing it, they'll take you back, they'll slap you on the wrist, and they'll send you on your way.
So all our buy-round listeners, get out on there.
Don't send me the bill. Yeah, we're obviously joking. We don't encourage it.
Clip this one up and
we obviously don't encourage
show
it.
the authorities that Charlie said you don't get fined.
We obviously don't encourage it. One thing I do want to say to you, Jimmy, is the Dogs hype is a bit out of control. There was fans carrying on at that game like, are we the favourites for the premiership now? No, you're not. You just struggled against the Bunnies. Relax. Just relax. Dogs fans are getting out of control with how hyped they are. I do. And you can hate on me for saying it. I don't really care. What I will say, though, is you guys carrying on and like beeping your horns in the P1 car park like you'd won the premiership. You scrape past the Bunnies without Latrell Mitchell. Just calm it down.
Yeah, look, I understand what you're saying. I still don't think they're quite favourites yet. But, mate, there's a lot to be happy about.
What do you think of Galvin at 5'8" as well?
Galvin at 5'8", I thought he was really good. Lots of involvement. I thought Sexton played really well.
So did I.
Like, really well. Like, yeah. Galvin improves that team. And, you know, for all the talk of the player that might have to make way, you've got an opportunity to win a Prem. Like, don't let that pass you by. Look at the positives. Like, even on individual level, you might be required to leave the club, but you can win it in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before we move on, Jimmy, a core stadium and the Bunnies playing there. I would love to see the NRL step in, and next year we have to get the Bunnies back to Allianz Stadium. We just have to. Not enough fans are going to that stadium for the Bunnies.
I'd say there was more Dogs fans there. It was a reciprocal membership deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably more Dogs fans, which would be disappointing from a Bunnies perspective.
I just think they've got to get them back to Allianz. Where their fans are more around that area, and
well, it made them money.
And the Roosters just need to cop it. I mean, it's a government-owned stadium.
Yes.
I saw there's some people carrying on about, the Roosters paid for it. No, they didn't. They didn't pay anything for it. That's fake news. What they did is they paid for their centre of excellence.
Yeah.
And they paid for their offices that are there. It's nothing to do with the stadium. That doesn't give you ownership of the stadium. If I donate a toilet to an office, it doesn't make the office mine. So just calm down, Roosters.
Yeah, I'm with you on the one, Charlie.
The Manly Seagulls, probably this is the biggest talking point now out of the whole NRL from the weekend is the pressure's now starting to turn on Anthony Seibold. Obviously, Manly's season has just completely derailed since the Daly Cherry Evans news, but now the pitchforks are turning on Seibold.
Yeah, it's been a really disappointing season for Manly. I think on paper they are a top 4 team, and at their best are a top 4 team. It's just finding that maybe, where maybe that view is formed with a peak Tommy Turbo, like at his absolute peak, which has probably gone past him now.
You reckon?
Yeah.
He could just be busted at the moment.
Yeah, well, perhaps. But when was the last time he dominated a game like he was in 2019?
Well, not this year.
He's not. Yeah, he's not for a long.
Yeah.
He's not dominated a game in a long time. There was times where he was absolutely unplayable. Like there was no match for him, and he was having 30, 40 receives a game, and 10 of those were like highlight reel stuff.
Yeah.
He's just not doing that anymore.
Paul Kent came out during last week and said that the cork injury that Turbo had, they're actually covering up for a hamstring injury that he suffered. Which,
why would you cover that up?
Well, I don't know, because what you could do, and not to burn your own player, but if his hamstring's gone again, that's going to make his value lesser out there in the player market. So if anything, you'd want that information out, not to be cynical.
Yeah.
The loyalty they show to each other, the Trbojeviches and Manly, maybe they would do something like that for him.
Then I can't for 1 second imagine why Manly would be playing that game. Like, it's a respected player within that club. And I feel for him because that's the Tommy that we expect. But I can't imagine the club playing games around fake injury news.
No.
To put a spin.
On Manly, Anthony Seibold. So what Buzz Rofford is reporting today is that Nick Ennis is being tapped on the shoulder as potentially a succession plan for Manly. So Seibold's contracted until the end of 2027. So that would mean that Michael Ennis would take over from him. However, it's not expected that Anthony Seibold would even finish out that tenure. Yeah,
wow. I must admit, it comes as a bit of a shock. I'm not writing Manly off. I think they can still make the 8. I had them in the top 4 at the start of the season. They won't make the top 4. Like a lot of teams, they've been hit with injuries. And then the impact is their captain and a player that's played at the club for 15 years is moving on. That was played out publicly. That certainly hasn't helped them, but I can still see them playing finals.
So,
and then I think Michael Ennis will make an amazing coach. And it's a funny one with Mick because he's not been the assistant. He's sort of had that, what's the correct word? Consultant style role where he's in a couple of days a week. I know obviously you got to look at somebody's ambition and the fact that he was willing to go to Canberra a couple of days a week. He's had I think he's had that role at Manly now for a couple of years.
He's in the coach's box on game day and stuff.
So he's obviously he's got a pull towards that. Like people don't do that unless, well, I can't imagine people doing that unless they've got a desire to advance, especially when you consider his media commitments as well. It's a lot to take on. And I know he'd make a fantastic coach. Like, he's a great motivator and he has an incredible understanding of the game. I can't speak highly enough about him, but there's a lot of coaches that would love that job at Manly.
Yeah.
And you know what? There was an article today, I think, in the Telegraph about like the next cabs off the rank, and I think there was Jason Demetriou, Brad Arthur are the only two that actually have had head coaching roles in the NRL. The rest were like up and coming, and it's quite the list. Michael Innes is in it as well.
Willie Peters in it.
Willie Peters is in it. Sam Burgess.
Yeah, who should
Josh
be in
Hannay.
it? Ben Teo. We had
Ben
him on the
Teo
show.
Ben Teo wasn't on the list.
He's obviously assistant coach of the Broncos at the moment, and he was running the Dolphins Queensland Cup side a couple of years before that. But you just sort of been around him. He's got a bit of an aura.
He does, and he's very impressive.
Very impressive, very articulate, understands players really well, understands the game really well. Apparently he's very tactically smart as well. So I think he's someone who, if I was a club, I'd be looking at for sure.
I've been... actually, I was listening to an episode of Stick to Football, and they asked the question, who's the best ever player and manager? And they talked about Zidane, Cruyff, and there's not actually that many. Like in football, there's not that. And it got me thinking about. I was on one of my runs actually. I was listening to it, and I was like, "Oh, wait, rugby league. Who's the best ever? Like player coach? Ricky Stewart would be
definitely
probably. He's the one that's like." First came to mind, but other than that,
like Mal Meninga, I guess. Hasler, yeah. Mal Meninga, I guess. Well, like obviously he's done at rep level, not at clubland, but like that's another one.
I think that's probably a bit. It could be proven in the next 3 years what he does at Perth. But there's not many.
I was going to say Trent Barrett, but his coaching career wasn't unbelievable.
No. He just was a coach.
Yeah, he just was
really,
a coach.
Like that. With all due respect to Trent Barrett,
I think it's hard to argue against Ricky.
He'd definitely be number one.
Yeah.
But if there's any listeners out there that can think of,
there could be coaches from the 80s, 90s that were missing.
That were missing.
Yeah. How did Arthur Beetson go as a coach? I know he. I don't know. I think he had a crack at it at certain points.
And because when I was looking at this list. And obviously, I've got biases towards the people who I know on a personal level, but there's definitely something about either really good players that there's a reason not an inability, but they see the game differently, and they understand the game or they've got, because they were so good. Like, it's hard for them to relate with average players, which you will have to deal with.
Yeah.
Even at NRL level, you're going to have to deal with some average people and how to squeeze the best out of them. So when you're communicating with those people, if they're not as, like, when I think of Sam and Mick, like two of the most incredibly motivated people to get the best out of themselves at all times, they're going to have to deal with some people that maybe aren't as invested as they are. And it's all like, but you compare that to say like a Josh Hannay or a Trent Robinson or a Bellamy. That would, because they've been there where they've not been a top quality player. That's been like Cam Serraldo. So those people have walked in the same shoes as most NRL players.
Yep.
Because that's what most NRL players are.
Yep.
They're not Sam and they're not Mick. So it's fascinating thinking like, why don't the best players necessarily make the best coaches?
Do you think some of that is to do with, Tony just said a good one as well for the coach, Bob Fulton, as one of the great coaches, players, great shout. Yeah. Do you think with some of the coaches as well, is part of that could be the opportunities for elite players? There's so many in post-career, so they don't go down the avenue of coaching.
Correct.
Because,
so yeah, it's a hard ladder to climb.
So Matthew Johns, for example, everyone knows he's an incredible coach. He's helped out a lot of clubs as a consultant. He probably could be an elite head coach. However, getting paid a shitload of money to be on television and do media is a really fun way of living your life. Less stressful. You don't have to move around. You're in Sydney. Security. Because then on the other hand, Andrew Johns, obviously he's got an incredible media career and everything, but he apparently found coaching very frustrating because he couldn't comprehend that someone couldn't do the things he was explaining. Exactly what you just said.
That's the point where, like, how Joey Johns would see the game would infuriate him. And I reckon with top level players, I don't even need. I'm just trying to think. They're not a drain on resources. They're not really coached.
Yeah.
They almost coach themselves and they figure it out themselves. But when you and they do some sort of coaching on the run in terms of like working on combinations, formations, patterns, but it's completely different. So back to the point with Seibold under pressure, I think I'd be surprised if he went before the season. But look, I couldn't speak highly enough about Mick as a person, as a captain, as a leader, as a explainer of the game. We see him on TV every week, and I've spoke to some people. I remember speaking to Josh Hodgson down at Canberra about how he can hold the meeting room. So Mick could be certainly moving into that category of person that, you know, if he gets a job, could be like a great player coach, but it'd be a huge challenge.
Yeah. I think you have to go through the different steps. I think you're seeing it at the Tigers with Benji. He's not gone through the steps. Yeah. And this is a year where the Tigers could be making the 8 and they're struggling. They're one win off bottom. And it's like if Cameron Serrata was coaching the Tigers, they could be a top 4 side, you could argue. That's where expansion's really interesting, because is it that there's a lack of players or is there a lack of quality coaches?
No, because if you read that list,
there's plenty on the but there's also some.
I reckon there'd be way more concern about number of players as opposed to number of coaches.
No, but I mean, if you have guys like elite coaches, like at the level of like Bellamy and Serrano and stuff, if you could get more guys like that, like those guys in that long list aren't necessarily at that level. Like, I'd really be keen to see Willie Peters come over here. I think he'd be great. But just back to Seibold. I'm sorry to keep detouring if you're a Manly fan, but Seibold, if he does, I don't think there's talk that he'll go this year. I think that surely that would be so unfair given the DCE saga. Like, that should give him at least another year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge transition that should not be underestimated. Like the moving on of DCE. Yeah, and Fogarty comes in with Brooks.
Yeah,
really.
Brooks has been a bit meh.
He's just okay, isn't he? Yeah. It's probably what you expect. He's playing. It's better that he's playing second fiddle. Probably he's not. He's definitely not scrutinised as he was at the Tigers.
Yeah, he doesn't offer don't want to be critical of him, but it doesn't seem like he offers a heap for them in attack.
No. I think still it's, can Tommy get fit? And then if you come into that Manly job, say Seibold moves on at the end of this year or at the end of next year, probably the biggest challenge is moving on from the Trbojevic era.
Yeah.
Both Jake and, I know obviously Ben's there, but moving on from Jake and Tom, like that transition, and who are obviously Hopper's there, but who are those rusted on, I'll die for Manly players?
Ruben Garrick.
Well, he was Dragons junior.
Yeah, true. He's not no. They got some good young players coming through in their juniors though, apparently. But on the Dolphins,
you know, all clubs say that. It's one of the most annoying. Like, look, as a player, you know, got like contract talks with different clubs at different stages. Yeah. And we've got some great juniors.
I tell you what, they love their rugby league over in the Northern Beaches though. Because I was in Brookvale on Saturday night and I went to this place, Chubbies or Chubbs or something in Brookvale. I've not seen a pub with that much sort of memorabilia. And it was a huge mural for Steve Menzies, and there was jerseys everywhere. There was a tipping board the size of this studio of different names and their tips for the round stuff, and they love their rugby league.
Rugby league's going gangbusters everywhere, mate.
You know, one thing that I didn't like though, which I thought was strange, they had this rock band playing out in the garage area. There was like a garage area music, but then they had the commentary on for the football as well, and it was two clashing audios.
Oh no!
And I thought you just play the music. Like mute the commentary. Yeah, you know, we don't need music and commentary.
No, one or the other.
One or the other. On the Dolphins, it was that game actually. Dolphins against the Cowboys just went up to North Queensland, and your man Christian Wolf, he has got the Dolphins humming.
I am so happy for him. Like, speaking of coaches, Christian Wolf, again, an excellent motivator. Doesn't need to say too much. He doesn't command respect, but he gets it instantly. Like, he's a person who had, I guess a phrase I'd use is I'd sit up straight for.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he gets my attention. He gets everybody's attention.
He looks like a character from a Guy Ritchie movie a little bit. Like, you just don't mess with him. He doesn't say much, but you don't mess with him.
Oh my God, no.
Yeah.
You do not mess around with Christian Wolf.
Sergeant Wolf.
He'd kill you. I know he does a lot of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, gun boxer apparently as well.
Yeah, gun boxer. Like, very like unassuming in that way. But I reckon if NRL coaches did like a fight night, he would be $1.
Yeah.
Like an absolute $1.
Yeah. Maniac. But they are.
But you know what? Talking about like coaches and philosophies and tactics and everything that goes with it, the Dolphins have changed how they play, and I don't know whether it was maybe just wanting to start the season, and some teams do that. They play a more conservative style at the beginning of the season and wait to get into it before. Like, they always talk about how we're going to play at the start, like keep it simple. And they were very simplistic at the start of the season, the Dolphins. Like, when you consider Farnworth, the Hammer, Katoa, Nicarima, I know they had that issue with the floods, but they were very conservative. And now, like, they are such a beautiful team to watch. And you can say things. There'll be certain teams that'll pump other teams, but they'll pump the lower teams. So, like, Parramatta will be on the end of a few floggings. You know, there's
Gold Coast, Knights, Dragons.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, the Knights have actually defended okay.
Yeah, they're actually one of the best defensive records in the league.
I think they're third best defensive team in the comp. But yeah, the Dragons will get flogged. The Titans will get flogged. So if
Tigers,
So if the Dolphins had like pumped those teams, and you could be like, oh, look at how many points they've scored in the last 4 weeks. Like, no, they actually smashed the Dogs and Melbourne. Like the two,
and beat Penrith.
So I think that, like, that's a big. Sometimes like stats and numbers can get misconstrued and sort of like give a bit of a false narrative, or you can get them to paint a picture. Yeah. But the fact that it worked against Storm and Dogs is huge.
Frankie Molo's been a good mid-season pickup for them.
Very good.
Because you think about them losing Gilbert, Flegler obviously not playing, Saifidi's now out for the year, Plath's out for the year. Imagine you put those four middles in that, and Ed obviously playing in different positions in the fullback, but put those forwards in, like the lift that would give them. Like, they might even have been a title contender with those teams, because I reckon they could make a run for a prelim this year.
They would be, Charlie. And when you think about Isaiah Katoa's rise, like, he's carrying that team on his back. He's not got a middle forward to get them up. No. I know their back five carry a lot and get them in good yardage positions, but the way Katoa's playing without a pack, without like where they could be if everyone was fit, I guess they look that in the next 2 years, if the injury gods and the stars align, they could win a comp. 100%.
Yeah. Something I thought that was interesting in that game as well, on the Cowboys side of it, was they obviously conceded, 58 points, whatever the score was in the end. And I saw in the changing rooms, they panned to the Cowboys thing, and Todd Payton was there doing a lot of talking. I just imagine after a game like that, you wouldn't need much information.
Yeah.
Like, he was just talking and talking and talking because they kept the camera there, and it's just him, no one else talking, addressing things. It's like, far out. We've just conceded nearly 60 points. We get it.
Yeah, I know they're missing a lot of their leaders with Origin, no Tamalolo, so maybe the room would be quiet. But yeah, after a bad loss like that, there's not much that needs to be said. But it is a younger group, especially that game. Maybe he felt like yeah. And you know what, we're talking about coaches a lot. Sometimes it's a feel thing. It's not a science. It's a maybe he felt he needed to.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the art of coaching. It is about reading the room and knowing when to talk, when not to talk. And if Coach Payton, that could go obviously two ways, couldn't it? If he's got the feeling like these young players need to learn and they need to hear this message now, or maybe they just need to, suffer in silence.
Yeah.
Because
you think if he doesn't say something, they'll be like, "Oh, he's not even saying anything to us in this moment."
Yeah. Like what? Especially younger players, they can be. What am I like?
Yeah. What do I feel now?
Yeah. What do I feel like? What do I take from this? And maybe that's what it is. It's that maybe Coach Payton felt like he got a sense that they needed some critiquing.
Just a couple quick things to wrap us up then, Jimmy. First of all, I think it's the worst call ever. And if it is a try, they need to change the rules. The Siua Wong try, how that is a try.
It is a try.
It's stupid then. They've got to change the rules then.
Well, that is the rule. So the rules take care of it.
I just don't think that is a try in any level of rugby league anywhere. He's tried to pick the ball up. He's missed it. Hits his arm.
It shouldn't be.
And we're calling that downward pressure.
It shouldn't be. I agree. I think the rule needs to be looked at, but the rule takes care of it.
So you reckon if that was sent, because the NRL's come out and said that it should have been called a try, you reckon if it was sent no try, they would have turned it over?
Well, the match officials are never going to set that up as no try. Because on first look on TV, and if you look at where the referee is, it looks like a try. So they're always going to award a try.
But then do they need to then change the rules so it's
well, it's got to be it should be the hand.
It's got to be hand.
It should be the hand. The Challenge Cup final, Hull KR scored a try where the defender grounds the ball with the torso, but it was ruled play on. I agree. I think that rule needs to be, and again, it's so rare. It's not like you can point to other examples. Oh, remember when this happened? It's like, no, it's beyond rare.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the hand for me, but the rules take care of it. It's not a 50-50. The rules take care of it. I reckon the only argument would be, was there separation? Did he touch it? Was it a knock on?
Yeah.
I think if you take care that it's not a knock on, then it is a try.
Yeah.
And even,
maybe there was a nick when he came through it as well. Maybe did nick his fingernail.
And if you see if that is proven, fair enough.
Yeah.
But the rules take care of it.
Yeah. Roosters, they got some young players coming through, don't they? I mean, Fiketti, that try he scored.
That's not fair. Yeah, the crazy thing is, he's practiced that.
Yeah.
That's not fluke. That's not thinking on your feet. That's not a moment.
No.
He's like a middle forward, edge forward that has practiced being in open space.
And he looked good.
And he knows what to do. For areas of your game that you need to work on, it's incredible mindset that he's going, I'm going to be in the clear. This is what I'm going to go bang off my left foot like that.
Brad Fittler style.
It was insane.
It's going to be interesting what happens with the Roosters and some of their forwards and how they navigate this period, because another concussion for Victor Radley, and it comes up as 7 concussions, but he's had some head knocks this year where he's passed them, which he should never have passed if we're going to be fair dinkum about concussions.
Look, for Victor, he'll get a lot of people telling him what he should or shouldn't do. And he's had his fair share of diagnosed concussions. He plays in a style that and in a position that it's almost unavoidable with the nature of our sport. And he's 27, so I'd be beyond surprised if he. And obviously, we spoke to him on the podcast. I've met him around the traps a couple of times. He doesn't seem the type of person that's going to listen to anyone anyway. So it almost, and at 27, it sounds strange to say. For me, in my later years, it became a risk assessment. Like, is it worth it? And he's playing at the Roosters, good club that not just going to look after him, but going to challenge for titles. Not going to give that up.
No. And I mean, I think at 27, there was talk, like we were at the footy yesterday and people start talking about, the Roosters might try to push him out here. The Roosters might try and medically retire him, given the players they have coming through. But I don't think Victor will retire at 27. Even if he left the NRL, he's going to go to England or something. Like, he is a guy who's going to probably play until he physically can't play anymore.
And people look at this like purely through the prism of like, or just stop playing. Do you think it's that easy to just give it up? Like at 27, when it's all you've known.
Yeah.
Like, and then what? Like, okay, ban him from playing. People say take that decision away from him. What's Victor Radley supposed to do with the rest of his life?
Yeah. And he
people don't understand it. It's not as simple as just stop playing. Like, you don't understand what this game means to people. Like the sense of purpose it gives people. Like people like Victor Radley, you don't want him just knocking around in the street with no job or behind a desk. It doesn't work like that.
You had him on, you just said, like, he was one of the first podcasts we did, or we filmed at his apartment in Bondi. And,
yeah, we did, didn't we? Yeah.
And he said something in that where when he sees a teammate bleeding, he gets jealous of them and wants to bang his head against the wall to bleed so he can feel what they're feeling. He's also a guy who, during his summers, works as a tradie, like 8 hours a day, so he can get all that energy out of his body. Like, he is a different beast, Victor Radley.
He is. Like, and society needs to be careful. You don't want people like him without rugby league in their 20s.
Yeah.
He's a lunatic. Like, give him the game as his little vice to go and be nuts in with a few rules.
A few rules and regulations.
Yeah.
Like, Ashes at the end of the year for him. He'll want to be playing for England in that as well. Of course,
yeah.
Yeah.
And anybody that calls for Victor Radley to stand down, stop playing, I'll come and examine your life and make sure you're doing everything possible to improve longevity and health span and lifespan, because I guarantee you're not. It really pisses me off.
Yeah.
When people start calling for people to retire. And even people who I know, and look, like there'd be a number of like neurologists that will get a call by a lazy journalist and say, this person's had this many concussions, like, what do you think? And the neurologist, that purely, like, it's their job to manage the brain, and they would look at it and go, purely from that singular viewpoint, they'd go, oh yeah, well, no, one concussion is too many. But they don't understand how certain people, maybe they do understand how people are wired up, but they just look at it as purely a brain care.
Yeah.
Like, but again, examine anybody's choices in life and tell me that they're doing everything, like every little thing, to improve longevity, health span, and lifespan. I guarantee you're not.
The only thing with Radley that makes things worse is he's failed 2 this year, I believe, but he also had 2 where he was clearly knocked out and shouldn't have come back on. There was one in New Zealand where he somehow passed it, and then there was one here in Sydney. I can't remember who it was against, but he honestly got knocked out and then he's passing those ones, that's where the NRL needs to do him a favour and make sure that he can't sneak his way through the test to pass that.
It's very difficult, Charlie. So with concussion, the people who I speak to on the issue, there is no diagnostic tool for a concussion. So
yes, it's an honesty test.
It is an honesty test, unless you're actually knocked out.
Yeah, and Victor Radley's not going to be honest. So they should look at the incidents and go, clearly he's not in a good way. Like those two which he's passed, he was clearly knocked out.
But then...
And then when he came back on, he wasn't the same player he is normally.
But then there's an honesty with the medical staff, but there's an honesty with yourself and taking responsibility for your choices. Like...
But I just explained the person that Victor Radley is.
Yeah, but then he's
not going to do that.
You live the consequences,
of course.
And you deal with the consequences later for your choice. Like
but
we
shouldn't
all
we
do.
Look after him as well, though, help him through that?
To an extent where you can guide people, you can advise people, but you can't live a dictatorship where like, look. When I spoke about it, like. I was taking responsibility. And if I get degenerative brain issues later down the track, that will be, no doubt, the biggest contributor to that will be genetics. Then I take responsibility for my choices. I privilege the present over the future. And that is me. And that is what I have to live with. And my family members might have to cope with that. And that, when I say privilege the present over the future, when I get older, that will be my present. And I'll probably think, I wish I didn't feel like this now. But you know what? What's done is done. And we all bear the consequences for decisions that we make in our youth, both positive and negative.
But the thing is, though, Victor's going to make the decision to come back on the field every single time.
Well, okay, but and you know, like I say, the honesty test. You have that conversation with Victor Radley and say, if you choose to go back on, this is what can happen to you later down the track.
He'll say, I'm going back on,
and that's fine.
Yeah,
but don't come crying to us. I'm not going to go crying to anybody. Like I will not be suing the game. I'll not be going after the doctors and the medical staff that looked after me. I'm not blame anyone. Take responsibility for your decisions. And even though in the immediate, so any player out there that has a concussion or a concussion issue, you might return to baseline pretty quick after a week and be like, oh, well, I'm fine. But these things do catch up with you, and that's fine. Yeah. But just take responsibility. Don't blame a game, or don't look for a game to guide you with what to do with your life. Find out the facts, find out what the consequences are, and make an informed choice.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to. It's like with everything, Charlie.
100%. And mate, realistically, players can't really consider them, won't be able to sue the game with everything the game's doing these days. Like if all the information is out there, it's insane to even think about.
Well, one thing's for sure, it won't happen moving forward.
No, of course not.
It won't happen.
Of course not.
Sorry. I know a number of former players that are part of the lawsuit back in England, and I don't agree with them. And part of me thinks it's a pure cash grab.
Well, yeah, and it could be.
And maybe a bit of resentment towards the game, or not feeling like they were paid well enough when they were playing. So, it's easy money. Just sign yourself up to a lawsuit. Easy cash. I get that. But it's not something you'll ever find my name next to, ever.
Yeah. Finally then, just quickly, because we've had a bit of a longer episode here, but Sharks, Dragons. Sharks, I still think are absolute pretenders. But the Dragons, Kyle Flanagan's copping some heat. From Gordon Tallis, he basically said on Sunday's show on Triple M that sometimes it's your son or your job, and he's maybe needs to make the call to drop Kyle Flanagan. But also then Shane Flanagan's now come out today and said Kyle Flanagan's been one of their best this year.
Yeah, very tough predicament to be in. I imagine Shane would be acutely aware of that. Lockie Ilias dropped New South Wales Cup. Their New South Wales Cup team are going really well now. So I guess some people calling for Ilias to come back into the team. But other than that, there's no real option. But I think the Dragons in that game, they lost to the Sharks, kicked defusal, and god-awful defence off a scrum. Like, some of the worst defending I've seen in a long... Like, lack of urgency to break. But we see some teams that break so quickly, opposition teams come up with a plan to exploit them breaking quickly. Like, we've seen... Like, the Ben Barber try in 2016 for Cronulla. Melbourne, at the base of a scrum, they're so urgent to help their edges out that they actually expose the scrum. They expose themselves at the scrum. And Cronulla came up with that intelligent play. Gallen breaks, pops it in the inside to Barber because they're so urgent.
Yeah.
You go back and watch that try that Katoa scored. It's 2-on-2 down that short side. Katoa starts on the inside of Moses Suli. So he's positioned right. Like Moses Suli has a bad moment there where he allows Katoa to get to his outside, but there's no one breaking. That where Katoa was, the edge back row should be tackling him.
Yeah.
And that's the last try was King Tongia basically trying for something. Katoa catches the chip, scores, but fundamentally the two tries that cost them the game were Sloan and Gutho, more Sloan messing up that kick, and then just a complete lack of urgency.
Horrific call late in the game as well. The Sharks get the ball back off the short kickoff. Clearly goes
24-18.
It goes like 13 meters. Like how you missed that? That was terrible. There was also, I mean, their referee was quite poor in that game as well. There was the square up as well where Sharks scored a try under the post, and they said they play the ball sideways to make up for another mistake they'd made.
Yeah.
And it was a weak refereeing night. It was an average game of rugby league.
It was, but
I hate watching the Sharks this year.
They're a bit. They're just
disappointing.
Yes, they should be better than what they are. That's it.
They've got a great coach in Craig Fitzgibbon. They've got a decent roster.
They've got a very good roster.
No Origin players hurts them, but
I tell you what, though, it was one of my favourite calls on Triple M.
Because Josh Reynolds said,
yes, he dropped.
It rhymes with Carmichael Hunt.
Yeah, he dropped the C bomb live on air.
Yeah,
much to my amusement. Can we post that in the? Can we put that clip in tone?
But then when the big guns joined up, Nico Hines. What are you laughing at? In Trindle. What's he doing?
He thought you said.
No, I didn't think. I don't think. I know what he said. I know what he said. There's no thinking about it.
Are you serious? Come on, mate.
Yeah, that is, I think, my favourite commentary moment of all time.
Yeah,
and the fact that he had the effrontery to consider that I was mishearing him, that he said big guns and not big see you next Tuesday.
Yeah.
What a remarkable thinking on your feet. But Josh Reynolds, we heard you loud and clear.
It was about 10:30 at night as well, so we're all a bit loosey-goosey by that point as well after a long day.
Yes.
But nah, it was good fun. Can't wait for Origin, mate. I'm off to get your plane now to Perth.
You get on that plane, Charlie. Fly safe, and we'll catch you all later in the week.